Can you imagine how crazy and free your life would be if you were an Arab prince with all that wealth? Salman bin Abdulaziz Saud's situation is this. He was born to an Arab prince and is currently the ruler of one of the richest nations on the planet. Believe me when I say that nothing will prepare you for how lavishly this king spends his fortune. Before we get into King Salman's trillionaire lifestyle, it's essential to comprehend where those trillions came from. When his older brother Abdullah, who was the king at the moment, passed away in 2015, King Salman, then 79 years old, took over. As king, Salman assumed leadership over the House of Saud, the Saudi Arabian throne, and the state-owned oil corporation Aramco, which accounts for the majority of the family's fortune. Now, Aramco has the second largest crude oil reservoir in the world, with a net value of $1.4 trillion as a result. The House of Saud is now extraordinarily affluent. There are 2,000 members of the royal family who share this unending wealth, but King Salman has direct control over everything. With this immense wealth, the House of Saud has constructed 12 spectacular palaces. The three most luxurious are the Yamama Palace in Riyadh, the Al Aljawa Palace in Adiriyah, and the lavish Urga Palace. The Al Yamama Palace. The effortlessly magnificent Al Yamama Palace is the headquarters of King Salman bin Abdulaziz, and it is in the heart of Riyadh, the Saudi capital city. It serves the monarch as both a working palace and the royal court. The exterior of the palace is effortlessly modern and elegant, with the traditional Arabic design that seamlessly integrates geometric motifs and pointed arched windows. However, it is the interiors that truly reveal King Salman's lavish taste. There are several magnificent chandeliers that could serve as their own art piece, lush carpets, ornate antiques, and gold. Lots and lots of gold. It's incredibly difficult to generate an estimate for this palette. If I was gonna guess, it would be in the hundreds of millions. On the flip side, whenever King Salman gets tired of this palace's opulence, he has been known to move to the older and more minimalistic Al Aljawa Palace. Contrary to Al Yamama Court, this palace is far less modern and has traditional Saudi Arabian architecture. Nevertheless, like that building, it has complex carvings on its walls and black and white images of Riyadh. However, unlike Al Yamama Court, there isn't as much gold, but don't be fooled. It is considered priceless because the castle is one of the oldest palaces on earth. But if you're seeking something even more lavish, the Urga Palace serves as a gentle reminder that King Salman has more money than you could imagine and more than enough money to build as many copies of the extravagant Al Yamama Palace as His Majesty pleases. The Urga Palace. The palace is where most of the king's diplomatic visits are received, and it is a testament to the extravagance of King Salman. In 2015, for example, he welcomed Barack Obama to the palace with a golden tissue dispenser. It's likely that many other objects in the palace are also covered in gold, but the king's love of gold doesn't stop there. He has also decked out a fleet of jets in the precious metal. It's one thing to have a gold palace, but it's another level of opulence entirely to outfit jets in the same way. The many jet planes of King Salman. King Salman owns and operates 6 jets. Yes, 6. Besides his incredibly grand official 747-400, the Saudi royal also owns 2 Boeing 747-200s, a 77-300, a 787-8, and an Airbus A340-200 that serves the king exclusively. The Royal Boeing 747-400 is a commercial jet that was modified for the monarch and turned into a levitating royal paradise. This aviation beast is one of the biggest passenger jets in the world and has room for more than 600 passengers. For obvious security reasons, there isn't an official video of the interiors, but it is believed to include everything from a throne room to meeting rooms, restrooms, and gold-plated beds. The typical cost of a Boeing is $100 million, but because King Salman owns 2, I urge you to do the math. But wait, keep in mind that they are all custom designed and have luxurious interiors made of gold. And also keep in mind that his other 4 aircraft have features in common. I can't tell you how much all 6 jets would cost to maintain, but I'll be surprised if the total cost was anything less than $3 billion annually, and yet that's just a drop in the ocean for the king, because what he spends on his diplomatic trips will make your jaws drop. Thus far, we have seen the king lavish a fortune of majestic houses, but in fact, his extravagant spending extends beyond real estate. He also spends a great deal on diplomatic trips, which are necessary for the maintenance of good relations with other countries. The trip to Washington. When the king visited Washington, D.C. in 2014 on a diplomatic mission, he reserved all 222 rooms at the opulent Four Seasons Hotel. Later, in typical Salman style, the king had the hotel completely redecorated. They were told to convert everything from non-gold to gold. It was necessary to replace the tables, mirrors, lamps, and even the hat racks, all of which were made of gold and were flown directly from Saudi Arabia. The lowest parking garage was carpeted so that the king wouldn't have to touch the bare ground. The king also directed that all the carpets throughout the hotel be changed to red. The 2017 trip to Russia. Now, if you think the 2014 trip was excessive, then you might want to lean back for this one. In 2017, King Salman went on a series of diplomatic trips from Russia to Indonesia, Morocco, Tokyo, and a couple of other countries. Every trip was a show of luxurious extravagance, and quite predictably, gobsmacking amounts of money were spent on the king's trip to Russia, where he brought with him an entourage of 1,500 people, 2,000 pounds of food, his own furniture, and his own carpets. However, King Salman's golden escalator, which he utilized to exit his plane, was the real star of the show. You might imagine how much a golden escalator would cost, given the regular escalators typically cost roughly $8,000 per foot, plus maintenance. Once again, I'll invite you to do the math. The royal apparatus, however, became stopped midway during His Majesty's descent, and he was obligated to climb down with the rest of us because gold is not a proper metal for mechanical moving parts. On the same trip to Russia, the king also booked out the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons hotels, both of which were occupied by the king's 1,000-plus entourage. To make this possible, these luxurious hotels were forced to cancel other guests' reservations and temporarily move out residents who lived there permanently. King Salman spent roughly $3 million on all of these reservations, which was an absurd tiny sum for the king before room service. In addition, King Salman rented 200 vehicles for his group, and by the end of his visit, he had spent an estimated $100 million in Russia. In Morocco, the king replicated his spending. He shelled out $100 million on one of the most expensive accommodations in the country, an undisclosed 74-acre estate, while the rest of the squad occupied 800 rooms in one of Morocco's most expensive hotels. Yeah, they booked out the entire hotel. Trip to Tokyo. While preparing for their trip to Tokyo, King Salman understood there would be a luggage issue, so he rented a $14 million Lockheed C-130 Hercules plane from the Royal Netherlands Air Force. The king converted his military aircraft, which was initially intended to fly tanks and other large loads over great distances, to carry his personal belongings as well as 2 Mercedes-Benz S600 that function as his official vehicles throughout his stay in Tokyo. Then, in order to accommodate his team, he reserved almost 1,200 rooms in some of the best hotels in Tokyo. He also ordered an additional 500 limos for everyone's transportation. The king would carry out the same procedure later in France. By the time the king would land in Indonesia later that year, 506 tons of his personal cargo had once again been arranged and transported into Indonesia in 7 large transport aircraft, including the C-130 Hercules and the Boeing 747s. This time, King Salman had 100 bodyguards with him who might cost up to $3,500 an hour. The total net worth of the persons in the entourage alone was in the tens of billions of dollars, and they all came ahead of the king on 36 planes over the course of 3 weeks. He also had 25 princes and 10 ministers with him in addition to at least 1,500 additional people. It came as no surprise that the king had very precious opulent requirements, just like every other nation he had visited. Most famously, he asked for a special restroom to be constructed for him inside a mosque he was visiting. I assume it was covered in gold. His demands were so onerous that it is said that the air freight company in charge of his transport required 572 personnel just to handle his cargo. At this point, you might be wondering why King Salman has to travel with so many people, and the answer is more obvious than you imagine. On the other hand, the king has specific needs, and at least 150 members of his 1,500 entourage are his personal professional chefs who are tasked with cooking specific delicacies for him. His servants are also part of the entourage, and the Saudi princes that tag along have their own servants on their entourage list. In fact, they are known to replace the staff of the hotels the king books with their own servants. So with that being said, we've come to the end of this video. Let us know in the comments section what you think of the diplomatic trips of King Salman. Thanks for watching. See you next time.